Hey there again, YouTube. This is Gene coming back to talk a little bit about TPI relocation kits. So for those of you who have bought into the fuel injection on two-stroke dirt bikes, specifically TPI, so anything KTM, Husqvarna, model years 2019 through 2023. As you're well aware, you have transfer port injection. At first, when they came out, I was not a fan, and I stayed away from them until recently, and by recently I mean early this year. So 2023, I should point that out. Early in 2023, I rode a friend's bike who had the TSP head and ECU mod done to his TPI bike, and I was very impressed with how that felt, and decided at that time to go ahead and pick up a nicely used TPI bike and start working on modifying it myself. My thought then was to do the same thing, go with the TSP head and their ECU, but in doing additional research, I changed direction and decided to go with a relocation kit altogether. And as you can see here, I've got this relocation block, which I'm sure a lot of people are already familiar with. This one being from Pinot Racing. And in this case, it allows you to move both of your injectors into the block as well. And you can see here, the oil line goes directly into the relocation block as well. So it helps to better atomize that oil with the fuel right there at the reeds, which is very similar now to what KTM is doing with the newer generation of bikes. Now, that being said, initially I did in fact move both injectors into that block, and I thought it was pretty dang good. With one, maybe a couple caveats. One being that when I would be going downhill, it seemed like the motor struggled to idle. It would hold idle, but much like a carbed bike, if the hill was too long or too steep, I would have to make sure I revved the motor up a little bit to kind of clean things out and keep it idling, or it would come to a stall on me. What did I do then to resolve that? Well, I'm gonna spin around to the other side of the bike and we'll take a look and see what I did. Now, before we get into that, some folks here probably are already aware, but TSP, so two-stroke performance, they know their stuff, and I can't take anything away from them. They know what they're doing, and their primary solution these days is to have you do a relocation kit where you keep one injector, as you can see I have here. See, look, one of my injectors is back in the cylinder. So now I'm running one in the block, one in the cylinder. I have a split design. And that is the same thing that TSP is doing now, where they are having you keep one injector in the cylinder and move one injector into the air boot in front of the throttle body, and use their head and tune, and that's their magic bullet for this. And I'm sure that is probably a little bit better than what I have going here, but it's quite a bit more money. So right now I'm still running the stock tune in the ECU. I do have, and you can't tell by looking because it looks like the standard head, and it is for all intents and purposes the factory head, but I did send that off to RK Tech and he worked his magic on it, and it's now a high compression head. Not something that's necessarily needed for everyone, but I ride at high elevation here in Utah, and a high compression head definitely helps. So, as my bike sits right now, high compression head, one injector in the cylinder, one injector in the relocation block, stock tune on the ECU, and it's cleaned up all the idling. It just idles beautifully now. It starts faster now, which I again attribute to having the injector in the cylinder versus both in the block. It pulls smoother. I don't feel like I lost any bottom end, which some folks claim you do. And maybe that's true. Maybe you can feel it, or maybe you could measure it on a dyno, but I personally can't tell by riding that it's any softer in the bottom end versus having both injectors in the relocation block. So anyhow, I just thought I would do this review as a quick summary of my experience with TPI and relocation blocks and how to make these things run better than they came stock. Anyhow, thanks again. Thanks for watching. Please click like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please feel free to post in the comments and I will get back with you as soon as possible. And you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.